Yeah, my name's Stephen. I'm a 25-year-old. I'm busy doing my articles, my auditing, accounting articles. And yeah, I've studied in Pretoria, but back living in Hillcrest, a little inland from Durban. And yeah, so I'm also very involved in a church up there called Hillside. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
Awesome. Stephen, when this whole, chaos erupted, some of the storage units in the area, were badly damaged and looted and all that stuff. And that's where you found that burned Bible. Can you just share with us that whole narrative, that whole story of how it happened, when it happened, and
Yeah. So one of our family friends, there was a video of her playing a piano and singing worship over that chaos, and just the storage units were still on fire, but there was just this piano in the middle of it, and she was just playing worship songs, and it's quite a beautiful video. And so we decided to go back and just declare worship over that space again, and I went to help out as part of the cleanup. And pretty much as I walked into the storage units, they were in these big aisles, big corridors, and I walked in, and the first thing I did was I saw this book on the floor that was burnt, and I picked it up, and I read a few lines, and I realized this was scripture. I didn't know what scripture it was, but I quickly took a snap of it and kind of put it back down. It wasn't mine to take, so I left it there, and then carried on helping move things and clear up and be a part of the worship. And then when I went back to have a look at the picture, it was, I did a bit of research on the lines I could see, and it was from Leviticus 26. And yeah, I just read that whole chapter, and it was so interesting. It's obviously an Old Testament scripture and part of the Mosaic law and part of the covenant that God had with the Israelites at the time, but there was just so much so many promises in there that maybe don't apply to us because we live under a new covenant, but the same God is promising that over his people. And it was beautiful things. Just speaking prophetically over the time we were in, it said that, 5 people will chase 100 enemies, and 100 will chase 1,000. And it was just this beautiful analogy how we're going to push out the enemy, and obviously the enemy being a spiritual enemy in our land at the moment. And then it went on to the favor. It said, you will never go without food. And it was so beautiful to read that in a time where even me in my own home, we didn't have access to food. A lot of KZN, there was no access to food or petrol, and to read that as a promise made to God's people back in the day, remembering that God still has amazing promises for us now, and promises of food and prosperity in a season of chaos and confusion and fear. So that was just the story that came out of that moment. And then the rest of the day we were there helping clear up, and we worshipped, and it was a really beautiful experience. Amazing to be a part of that.
Come on. And what do you think is God busy doing in South Africa in this time, through his church, and what do you think does he want to say to South Africa in this time?
I think what stood out to me is that I understand, and I would hope the church understands, that we're at spiritual warfare with an enemy that is unseen. And I think what's happened in all this chaos is that we've just awoken once again that actually we are at war spiritually. And maybe it took some physical war-like things to happen for us to realize that we're in this battle. But I think it's a beautiful moment for us to kind of retake up the weapons spiritually and kind of press an enemy. I think in this land there's been a spirit of oppression and division, and it's horrible to look at our history. And I think the church got complacent, and they thought, okay, maybe apartheid was over, so it's done. That enemy's been defeated. But I think it's so evident that it isn't defeated, and maybe we became complacent. But what an opportunity, and what a time, and watching the church actually realize and push against this enemy and bring unity. And I've seen hundreds of people be fed, and guys like you coming down and giving food and sharing stories and encouraging the church coming together. So I think it's a time that has just ignited the battlefield once again, and the church to kind of take the foreground and actually defeat enemies that have stuck around in this land for way too long.